Okay. Uh, haven't had a moment to calmly collect my thoughts since what happened yesterday. It's been a whirlwind. We're here in Breckenridge, Colorado, where my brother lives. We came out here to his house for Passover, to do Seder. We do it from time to time, and if I sound out of breath, it's because we are 10,000 feet above sea level and the oxygen is really thin here. And you have to drink a lot of water and just sort of take it easy the first, day or so to get yourself acclimated to the altitude. You can get altitude sickness otherwise. And it's not fun. But it's also a full house, so everybody's always coming and going. It's my mother, my father, my brother, 2 kids, and the wife. So we're a full house. And I guess this is the only time where it's really possible to sort of quietly talk. And so, the weird thing is I don't want to sound, I'm going to come off sounding really dramatic in everything that I say. I think I don't want it to be that way. I kind of debated as to whether or not I should make this video. I thought, I was writing out this whole Facebook post and decided to not do that. And I was just really grateful to be alive, I guess. Yeah, it was like that. It was like that, like one of those grateful to be alive sort of situations. We flew. I've been flying since since I can remember. I'm 36 and I've been on countless airplanes. I've flown all over the place. I've been on 12, 14-hour plane rides, literally across the world. And I've never experienced what I experienced yesterday. We had a flight with United from LaGuardia to Denver Airport, and we got up super early in the morning, got on the flight. It was myself, my wife, and my 2 kids, ages 6 and 3. And the flight went really smooth. I even made the mistake. I'm not a superstitious person per se, but even I will, keep my mouth shut when it comes to, when something's in progress, to not jinx it by saying, "Oh, this is going really well," and that's exactly what I did. Not that that's what led to what happened next, but it was a bumpy flight as far as flights usually go. Usually flights are pretty smooth. This one was incredibly turbulent, way more than normal. And, but nothing that we hadn't experienced before. Sometimes the tendency is that you want to blame the pilot and be like, wow, this pilot just really sucks at flying. And, I used the suck word. And that's true. Sometimes you get pilots that just what are you doing? You feel, or at least that's what's going on in your mind. But the reality is to pilot an airplane is serious business, and you don't know what goes into doing it. And, it's easy to criticize. And it's crazy to think that, 1, 2 people have so many people's lives in their hands in that kind of way. So as the flight is drawing to a close, we begin our final descent. And it's rough. It's rough going down it's a rough descent. And but we're hanging in there. I mean, surprisingly, Noah, who's 3, I mean, she's handling this really well. Sometimes their ears pop and they need gum, and they're kids, they're inconsolable. I was inconsolable when I was that young, and I just couldn't, the pressure in my ears from the plane going down. But we didn't have that issue. The issue we did have was that it was just really rocky. I keep saying that, but it's leading to what happened next. We have that little flight monitor in front of us, the TV, and we're watching the feet drop. Our elevation is slowly dwindling down, and we're about to touch down on the ground, and things get rougher and rougher. And it's usually at that point in the flight when things get that rough, and you're doing a landing that might be a little rough, where you're waiting for that moment of anticipation. Oh, I can't wait for the plane to land. Everything's going to be okay. This, that, and the other. And that is not what happened at all. What happened next? So we are literally, we can see out the window. We must be like 15 feet from landing. We're that close to the tarmac and to the runway. And all of a sudden the plane starts shaking violently in a way that I have never felt in all those times I mentioned flying. And what was funny is I remember Noah's reaction. She thought it was like a roller coaster. That's how extreme the changes were. It tickled her. She was going, she thought it was the funniest thing in the world. What I surmise, and I am not a pilot, I don't know anything about flying, but I don't think you need to be a pilot or know anything about flying to recognize, to observe what's happening in the situation. What was happening in the situation was the pilot was clearly not in control of the airplane. That's ultimately what this is all leading to. The pilot was not in control of the plane in a way where he felt that he could land the plane. Being 15, like I said, we were right above the runway. We were right above it. We were practically touching the ground. And for whatever reason, the pilot fought and struggled with the plane, which, like I said, was just shaking, and we were swaying so violently. And what happened next chilled me to the bone. We began to ascend. We didn't land. The pilot didn't feel comfortable landing, and instead we started to ascend, and we're looking at the monitor, and we can see that we go back up to about 9,500 something feet. And now the air in the cabin is everybody is just quiet, eerily quiet. Nobody knows. Everybody's kind of like side-eyeing everybody else. No one's sure what is going on. I look over at my wife. She's freaking out. I'm starting to freak out. And it's normally at this point that you hear the pilot get on the radio, and he goes, well, says something piloty. And that did not happen. There was complete silence from the cockpit, which terrified me even more. And my mind started to run scenarios because we weren't getting any new information. So the first scenario I thought in my head was, there must be something wrong with the landing gear. And the pilot couldn't land. And we were now buying time by climbing into the air again and figuring out how to make a landing. The second thing that went through my mind, the most logical thing was, well, we're going to turn around and do another. He's just circling around. He's going to do another descent, final descent, as they call them. But it's at this point where, my wife grabs my hand, I grab her hand, we're squeezing our hands really tightly. The kids start freaking out. Noah, my daughter, goes from thinking it's a roller coaster. She vomits. Inav, my wife, she was like, I think Noah's going to vomit. She hands me a bag, a vomit bag. And I was like, no, I don't think she's going to vomit. And sure as shit, she just starts vomiting, caught it all in the bag. Then my wife vomits. Then my son, who is just completely out of it, he's just like lying like putty in my wife's lap. I have Noah in my lap. And I'm just trying to, I start wondering out loud, like what's happening? I'm thinking, oh, they're probably just turning around to do another landing. But why? Why couldn't they land the first time? And again, I'm thinking about the landing gear. Someone from behind me starts praying to Jesus. Everybody, I see a family in front of me. There's a French family. They were speaking French. That's how I assume they're French, or they're French, a French-speaking family, I should say. And the husband looks to his kids. He's sitting in an aisle seat, and then his 3 kids are in the other 3 seats. We're actually kind of illegally sitting because we had 4 seats, and I consolidated with my daughter, who's 3, so she was sitting in my lap. But I'm looking up at this guy, and he has this look of terror on his face, this absolute look of utter despair as he's looking at his family, 2 girls and a wife. And then that's when I I said out loud to myself, Jesus fucking Christ. And then immediately recognizing that there were kids present, the guy's kids, I also inadvertently blurted out, and I felt so embarrassed. I said, pardon my French, to a French-speaking family that was sitting right in front of me. So stupid. And I thought about apologizing to them. And then I thought, you know what? I don't know if they heard. Better just we're like, who knows what's going to happen next? And then this is, like I said, the plane, the whole time that this stuff is happening, here's what's going on with the plane. The plane is violently swaying back and forth. It feels like the pilot is fighting for control of the plane. There was a wind. Apparently the winds were like 100 miles an hour or something. It's what's known as wind shear. And there was insane amounts of wind shear that were acting up. But still, all the while, we're not getting any information. Nobody can tell us anything. I start singing this lullaby that I sing to my daughter out loud to try and calm her because she's crying, and I'm going, this pretty planet spinning through space, your garden, your harbor. And then my wife turns to me and is like, shut up, just shut the fuck up. And I'm like, and then I start singing it to myself in my head. But I was really singing it to myself just to calm myself down. I didn't know what to do. And then here's where things just got really dark and crazy. I started to realize that this might be the final moments of my life. That's the honest to God truth. Whether they actually were the final moments of my life or not, no matter how, I don't know how close to death we actually were, but I will tell you that I truly believed that we were not going to get out of the air. I thought these were my last moments on earth. As a matter of fact, I thought that the plane was going to explode or something was going to be faulty with the plane. And immediately I started thinking about all of the people on the planes of 9/11. I know that sounds really dramatic, but that's what I thought about. And what I thought about was the powerlessness, the complete and utter powerlessness of it all. That here we are at the mercy of whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. We're at the mercy of a pilot trying to get control of his plane. We're at the mercy of the elements of the wind. We're at the mercy of the machinery itself. I don't know if you believe in God. I struggle with that stuff a lot. I used to have a very sort of sound belief in a God, and it's sort of changed, ebbed and flowed over the years. And in this moment, I'm looking to a God I'm not sure exists, as I'm thinking that these are possibly my last moments on earth. I'm literally thinking, okay, this is it. This is your last day. This is the end. And like I said, the powerlessness, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to be in that position of powerlessness where you're completely at the mercy of whatever else could or could not happen. And the plane turned around. I'm trying to remember, did a voice, did a radio eventually come on? Did the pilot eventually get on and say that we're going to try a landing from a different angle? But that was way later. Much later. It was like 20 minutes. It was like 20 minutes. So we were basically in radio silence for 20 minutes, unsure of. It's okay. We're unsure of. We're unsure of what's going to happen, and it was terrifying. Can I ask you what was going through your head when that was all happening?
It was on two edges. It's like on one hand, it was so silent and sharp and painful. I found myself like thinking to myself, is it really it? Like, is this the last hug? Is this the last touch? On the other hand, it's like there was a side in the voice that had told me that like, we will be okay.
But what's insane is like, I mean, it's no exaggeration when we say that we really thought we were going to die. And eventually we do, the pilot does successfully land the plane. Everybody cheers when the plane lands. Everybody's cheering and shouting, and we're all happy. They're all drained. I'm drained too, but I'm also ecstatic. We get off the plane, and we asked the stewardesses, have you ever experienced anything like this? One stewardess said, I've experienced this one other time in 30 years, but it's not, it's more common than you think. I don't know, twice in 30 years doesn't sound very common to me personally. And we're getting off the plane and we're walking, and Inav here, we see the pilots outside, a man and a woman, and I wanted to ask them 1,000 questions about like what happened up there, and I thought better of it not to, and instead just thank them. But Inav heard the male pilot, he was on the phone. And he said, I need to speak to maintenance immediately. Now, whether that was in connection to the plane or to what we had just experienced, who knows? But it's terrifying to think that there might have been a malfunction with the actual plane. What was the other thing that you heard when we were walking? Do you remember the other thing that we heard when we were walking? There was one other thing. The point is, yeah, it had to do with the mechanics. Yeah, it was absolutely, it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying, and we were so grateful. And the first thing we did was, I forced everybody. I was like, I need to go to In-N-Out Burger. I need to eat. I just want to eat like some food that will make me feel better, and just be grateful to be alive, that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, it's just weird. Like, when you're in it, um, and the funny thing too is that 20 minutes, it lasted forever, man. It felt like an hour. It really, really did. And, you know, besides thinking about the people on 9/11, besides feeling powerless, I'm thinking like, is like our whole family is going to be like snuffed out in an instant, the entire family. Like, how insane is this? This is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. All of these thoughts, like consciously, cognitively being aware of your demise is terrifying. It's terrifying. And I think that if we weren't making our descent again and that we were up there and we were up there for a little bit longer, I'd like to hope that I could have gotten to a place where I really could have been okay. And the irony too is, when I was younger, I used to always tap on the plane before I would get on the plane. It was my little good luck ritual that if I tapped the plane would land okay. So it was like alleviating my anxiety about flying. And it's not like I had any like outstanding anxiety in general, but I don't know. It was just something I did. And then one day I realized like that I had to let go of the outcome and that I had to stop tapping the outside of the plane and realize that it's not in my hands. And that was a very freeing sort of like, that was a very freeing thing to do. And so after one day I got on a plane, I stopped tapping it, right? And then fast forward now, here I am. This plane might be going down. And I'm just thinking in my head about how out of control I am of the situation. How, like, you hear all the time, people talk about powerlessness, what it means to be truly and utterly powerless. And I was face to face with it, completely at the mercy of something that was out of my control. At least if I was driving, I could slam on the brakes, turn the wheel. You know what I mean? That all I could do was grip the armrests of my chair, hug my kids, hold my wife's hand, and hope for the best. And it also made me realize how precious life is. I mean, as cliche as that sounds, it's a cliche thing. And this video itself is cliche, but I just wanted to share my experience. Like, that's my experience. And, my life didn't flash before my eyes. My mom asked me that. She said, "Did your life flash before your eyes?" I said, "No." And I guess because it wasn't really my time to go. And to bring it back to the beginning, I talked all about like how, I didn't want to, not jinxing things. I debated on making this video because, again, I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that the situation wasn't worse than it could have been. And just feeling like I would be going against that by making this video. But I still felt like it was important. I just needed to get this out. And just, this wasn't going through my mind. This went through my mind today. We went to the pool. I was swimming with the kids. And I was lying in the water staring up at the ceiling. It's like an indoor pool, sort of rec center sort of thing. And I'm looking at this big fan turning around. And I was just thinking, if it was my last moments on earth, that I'm kind of grateful that, had I gone out, I went out, not stuck in a job that I hated to tears and felt dead inside, that I spent every day of these last 2 years, sort of doing things that I really love to do. And that ultimately we only have this one life, and that we should try our best, by within our means, to do what makes us happy. Do whatever it is that makes you happy in life, as long as you're not hurting anybody else or affecting anybody else in a bad way. And the last thing I want to say is, because obviously, I mean, when you feel like when you feel like you've had a near-death experience, when you feel like you've almost died, it makes you think about the big picture of all sorts of stuff. It makes me wonder, we were talking yesterday about, if your consciousness does leave your body after you die, how does violence play into that? Like, if you leave your body violently, is it like mud at the bottom of a stream? Like, it takes a while for it to settle back down. Does it ever settle back down? If you slowly and gracefully shuffle loose the mortal coil, like you die, you shed your body, like you die gently and gracefully, whether it's in your sleep or, just very accepting of your death. Does your consciousness like sort of easily release itself from this, whatever this is? I don't know. I don't know. That's assuming that consciousness is like a thing that's tethered to this. This is what allows me to be here in this reality, my body, me, right? The ghost driving the meat skeleton or whatever it is. No, the ghost driving the exoskeleton covered in meat covered exoskeleton. I don't know. But it made me think about that when I was in that sort of thing kind of popped into my mind today. And then the last thing, again, as I said, I tried my best to turn to God at a time where I'm not really sure what God is, or if there is a God, or how all of that works. I'm struggling with all of that right now. And it made me think of the ant. And I've talked about this before on the channel about how, like, talked about ants and how it's the ratio, I don't know how to say this again, how to verbalize this, that human beings are almost godlike to ants, and therefore, if we are godlike to ants, nearly immortal compared to an ant, endless strength, endless knowledge, like all those things, you'd have to imagine that scaling upwards, that we would be the ant for something else. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I thought about that, and I thought about the sort of meaningless chaos of being up in this airplane and possibly dying, and just thinking about how just the flap of whatever that bigger thing is might indifferently cause our destruction, or the other side of it, like save us. Whenever I cross insects today, I always try to help them out. Why? Because I can. But sometimes insects get crushed. Sometimes they get stomped on by accident. You're walking on grass, you don't see the insects below. It's nothing personal. And that's kind of how I felt up in that airplane, so powerless. Like there was no meaning to anything. Like at any moment, it could have been the it just could have been the end, and there wouldn't have been any reason behind it other than, oh, wrong place, wrong time. I don't know. That's terrifying to me too. And yeah, I don't know. I'm still unraveling this experience, and I might do a follow-up to this video. This is just a lot of just my thoughts on what happened. And I'm grateful to be here. More than anything, I'm grateful that my family is okay. I'm grateful that everybody on the plane is okay. And I'm so grateful to that pilot. When we did land, we finally heard from the stewardesses or flight attendants or whatever they're called. I don't know what the proper way to address them. I don't want to speak pejoratively, but uh, they said something about like they just said we had a little slip up there, and that's what you call an ace pilot. They made it sound like what happened, like the fact that we landed okay was a miracle. And then when we got on the ground and I was telling my dad, who had come to pick us up, we were telling my dad about what happened, and he said, it sounds like you hit wind shear. And what that does is the wind causes the wings to touch the ground, like to push one wing to one side or the other side, because the wind is so strong, it can do that to an airplane. And it's very possible that the pilot just made a good call. He realized that I can't land safely, and the only thing to do is to pull up and try it again. He mitigated the risk, and he saved all of our lives in the process. At least that's what I want to believe. What was I this close? Was I this close to death yesterday? I don't know. That's the honest truth. I don't know, but it sure felt like it, and that's why I'm calling this video my near-death experience, or why I will address this as a near-death experience. No life did not flash before my eyes. I don't think it flashed before my wife's eyes or my kids' eyes, but I do feel like there was a good chance we weren't going to land. And I probably sound like a crazy person with everything I just said. This was a very unfiltered video, just sort of expressing my thoughts and feelings. And like I said, like there are some people that's how they spend their last moments on earth. That's how their lives end. It's like everybody thinks that their own life is a movie and that they're the main character of it. And sometimes the movie just ends meaninglessly. It's terrifying to think about. And so the ultimate thing I realized, to sum this whole video up, you just got to live every day, day by day. Again, it's just like that Rent song. It's just like Rent, no day but today. It's so true, though. It's really true. You really just need to live life day by day, and hopefully you're happy with whatever it is that you're doing in your life. And if you're not, hopefully you get to a place eventually where you are, because all we have is just today. That's it. All right. That's enough of my TED Talk. Peace and hair grease.